Hello and welcome to this live interview with Professor Michael Arthur, Vice-Chancellor of the University of Leeds, who's come to talk about the financial situation that the university finds itself in and the Economies exercise. First of all, can I thank everybody who sent in a question for the Vice-Chancellor. We will try and cover as many points as we possibly can during this interview, but everyone who sent in a question will get a response, so look out for that. Professor Arthur, Leeds is a top-class university. It's got a good reputation. Why does it need to make cuts at all?
Well, this has really come about because of external pressures on the university, in particular the recession that the country is facing and the effect of that recession on public sector spending. And of course we receive a large amount of money from the government. We are already experiencing cuts. We've experienced them this year. We know that there's another 120 million to be found from across higher education in the next financial year as a minimum. But the real issue is what happens from 2011 onwards, when nobody seems to be offering to protect higher education in this country. And we will, of course, be caught up in all of that.
Now, there's a question about the timing of all this, and a couple of questions have come in asking about this. One being, aren't we going for this too early? That if you make cuts now, that will simply become the baseline from which the government, whichever government is, requires you to make further cuts. So why have you decided to go now?
Well, I don't believe it is too early, for the simple reason that we are already facing cuts. That's the first issue. We've got a lot of pressure on our costs, which is current. For example, we don't know yet what the pay settlement will be beyond this year. We don't know what our pension costs are going to be, and we're facing decreases in income because of the recession in multiple ways. So not only are we looking at cuts from the Funding Council to the University for Education and Research, but we're looking at decreased income from industry, decreased income from charities, and decreased income through the research councils. Now, all of those pressures are already coming to bear on the university. Secondly, the university plans generally about a year in advance. We're already in the planning cycle for 2010-11, and we are about to set our thoughts about the budgets, for example, to the services in the university. So there's something about the timing of this that relates to our general planning process.
Well, somebody else said, oh, the recession's been going on for months, if not a year now. Why didn't you set this in train earlier, before the university went into its planning for the future?
A number of reasons. First of all, I think things have become much clearer over the summer. There have been a number of occasions when politicians have indicated that they won't be able to protect higher education funding in any round of public sector spending cuts. That was very new over the summer, and also, you know, we start to think about our finances for the following year in the summer, and a lot of detailed work went on over this summer. And I think really, as we looked at all of those risks, we had to make some decisions.
Clearly, we're facing an election next year. We don't know what government will be in power. Would it not have been politic to wait and see what happens at that point and take it from there?
I can see that point, but I would come back to the fact that neither political party, neither of the main political parties, has indicated that they will protect higher education. So the way it's looking at the moment is that it will make very little difference which colour of government is in position next summer. There is a secondary thought to that, which is that if there is a new Conservative administration after the general election, they have got the option, which they will most likely use, to have an emergency budget, and they could give us further significant in-year cuts next year. Now, my feeling is that we should at least be ready in our planning for what might happen if that occurs, rather than wait until it does happen. I think it's really crucial that we think way ahead and start to scenario plan. Now, of course, there's quite a difference, and I think this is a really important point to get across to members of the university, between planning and actually the doing. Okay, and at this point in time, what we're largely doing is working out what we would do as those cuts land.
Somebody else put the point that given that the government's been prepared to bail out the banks because they're so important to the economy of the country, that if higher education is also important, shouldn't the university be putting its time and effort into lobbying to protect the funding rather than making cuts in anticipation of something?
Well, let me reassure you, of course, there's been an enormous amount of lobbying fairly openly, but also behind the scenes by a number of leaders in higher education. I, of course, have my lead role in the Russell Group, and I've been saying exactly that to senior civil servants, to the current government, and to the opposition. But it hasn't only been me. There have been many other individuals who've tried this. So far, we've been unsuccessful. Of course, it would be entirely possible for any administration now to say that they would go ahead and protect higher education, but we haven't been able to get that promise from them, despite a lot of effort and a lot of lobbying.
Well, I'm going to move on now to the issue that probably concerns people most at the university, which is jobs, and there have been a lot of rumours and numbers being put about what's going to happen to jobs. So let me ask you, what is going to happen to the jobs of the people who work at this university?
Well, I think it's pretty obvious, isn't it, that if we need to make savings of 35 million, that it will have an effect on jobs. We don't yet know how many jobs and exactly which areas of the university, because, as I say, we're trying to think our way through this. We're trying to plan our way through and to come up with a way that has the most positive effect for us in terms of what's important to us. Our students are important to us. Our ambition to keep research and learning and teaching together, those various things that are there on the strategy map. So we're trying to plan our way through this and minimise the number of job losses. Now, there are some other very important things to say. Before we get to jobs, there's a lot of money that could be saved, I think, in the non-staff spend, and there's a massive effort going into that. We're also looking at controlling recruitment at this current stage, and we've also put quite a significant chill on the capital programme. So there's a lot of effort going to saving money by other ways. We will then go through a process where we will be talking at length to our staff through the whole of the next 18 months as we're trying to do this. We'll be in deep consultation with our staff, discussing with them what the options are and keeping them well informed, our students too, of course.
Is there any likelihood that the number of jobs that need to be saved can be saved simply through natural wastage and turnover of staff in the university?
I think we will be looking at a voluntary scheme, most likely in the new year, and of course looking at the recruitment. And I'm hoping that that will be the way that we would save most of those jobs and keep staff numbers under control through those mechanisms. Now, of course, I know that a big question out there is the one of compulsory redundancy. And I just want to tackle that straight up front. I think I've been incredibly consistent about this ever since I came to the university. I've always said that I couldn't rule it out, whatever situation we were talking about. But I've also said that I would only ever use it as an issue, a matter of absolute last resort. Nothing has changed about that. There is, I think, a scare and a worry that compulsory redundancies could be happening soon. That isn't true. That absolutely is not true. There are no plans at this point for compulsory redundancy. There can't be, because we're in the process, as I described, of working out what it is that we think we can do to save money. So as far as I can see, compulsory redundancies are very remote. I'm hoping that we never get that far. But I, of course, have to be careful if people ask me the direct question about compulsory redundancy.